Hey guys, Jeff here. This time to talk about not a video game or a movie, but a book. Yes, I like reading books. I like to think that maybe I'll write one someday, so always enjoyed reading and writing. The book is Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. Sorry, I don't have the jacket. I borrowed this, and I don't like to borrow the jacket because I don't want to screw it up. Uh, Dark Places is a murder mystery by Gillian Flynn, writer from Chicago, hometown pride. It's about a girl named Libby Day, who I think is in her like mid 20s now, maybe almost 30, right around 30 years old. Who she's a damaged person, um, barely functional, barely getting on through life. When she was a kid in 1985, one night her entire family was murdered besides her. That means both of her sisters, her and her mom. The only other surviving person besides her was her brother, who took the fall for the murders. He got labeled as a devil worshiper and all this stuff. He was like supposedly a bad kid in school, and she helped put him in jail. She testified against him when she was like 7 or 8 years old, and now she's a completely, I guess, broken adult, like an adult that's stuck in Arrested Development, kind of like a really needy kid inside, and in some ways a bad person, a hard main character to like. She narrates half the book from first person. The other half of the book is third person flashbacks to various characters in her family back on that day in 1985. So you have it jumping back and forth between her now trying to figure out what really happened, and back then us being shown, the reader being shown what happened. That's the book. The way it starts out is just like I said. That's the premise. She's this, she doesn't have a job. She was living off royalties from a book that was ghostwritten about what happened to her family. She really doesn't have much to go on, and this guy, Lyle, who is the head of this, you know how they have like those, there's little fan groups for everything: anime, comics, horror movies. He's the head of like this club of people who are obsessed with famous murders and trying to get to the bottom of them, what really happened. And so she gets approached by this guy, Lyle, who wants her to come speak at an event. And they want her to maybe dig into the case and this and that of what happened. And she accepts because the royalty money from the book that was written about her family is run out. And she's basically out of cash. She might actually have to get a real job soon. And she can't get a job. So she she accepts his offer and she starts digging into what happened. She starts really searching her soul about what happened, and she realizes that she doesn't remember really what happened that night that her family was slaughtered. She remembers bits and pieces here and there, and she doesn't really think that, she thinks her evidence was coerced by psychiatrists. And so does Lyle in this club. They think that she was a little kid that was tricked into giving a confession and saying that she saw things that she didn't, which is actually a very believable premise because little kids are known to be extremely susceptible to stuff like that. That's why there have been cases of people that the entire classroom, like of kindergartners, have accused the teacher of molesting them when this guy has no history of pedophilia or anything like that. There's no evidence. It's just a bunch of little kids saying it because the doctor and psychiatrist ask leading questions and little kids have imaginations. So she starts to believe that's what happened to her, and she's investigating into what happened and hopefully becoming a better person along the way. Although it takes some time and you don't really root for her right away. Now, some problems people might have with this. So, right off the bat, I'm just going to say this. This is my little critique on this book. It's an extremely dark, twisted tale filled with ugly characters, including our main character. She's a bit of an ugly person in a way. Like, she's selfish. She's doesn't really do anything to contribute to society. She doesn't care about other people. She's opportunistic. She steals from people. She steals from stores. She steals from people that she visits. She has collections of lotions that she's stolen from relatives' houses and or just people she's known houses and stuff. And so for many people who don't have an appetite for this kind of story, they're going to be extremely turned off by both the subject matter and the writing and just the material in general. Like, even I'm like a hardcore devoted horror fan for life. There were parts of this book that made my stomach turn, descriptions that made my stomach turn, situations that made my stomach turn. So extremely. I mean, it's called Dark Places, and the title doesn't lie. It's a dark book about things in life people don't want to talk about lives that some people are forced to live that you don't want to think about. You just like, oh yeah, I know bad things happen. I don't want to know about it. Well, this delves straight into it, head first. So right off the bat, like, even for me, it was almost too dark at times. But there'll be people that it's just everyone has their own things that they're into or whatever. And if you're not into horror, if you're not into dark thrillers, if you thought if like The Seven turned you off, or I guess basically if thrillers or horror, just dark humor and stuff like that turns you off, you're gonna want to avoid it. I think you're missing out. I think that you have a narrow appreciation of art, I guess, but for some people, not going to be your cup of tea. And yet, the book works. The book definitely works, and that's due to incredibly skilled writing. I'm envious of Gillian Flynn. I wish I could write like this lady. Um, really, I mean, not to sound sexist or anything, but I cannot believe how hardcore. Well, besides the fact that her writing's good, just the fact that she just goes for the throat and how dark and fucked up this book is. I just it just kind of blows me away that it's coming from a woman. Sorry, I mean if you think that's sexist, maybe it is in a way, but I'm just being honest, man. You don't expect shit like this out of a woman. The book is plotting at parts. Actually, for most of the mystery isn't revealed until the end. Most of it along the way, when you're in Libby Day in the present, not a lot is revealed. Every person that she goes to interview that was around on that day back then, she goes to interview her broke ass dad who had run away, but maybe he owed debt. And she goes to talk to him, and he's like a homeless drunk, and he has not much to say. He doesn't know anything. And that's how it goes throughout most of it. So like for some people, even if you can stomach it, it's gonna feel uneventful for most of the book. When you read a murder mystery, you expect to get a little nugget here and a little nugget there to reveal what's going on and get a little bit deeper to the truth, closer to the truth. And that's happening here, but it's mostly done in the flashbacks when you're finding out what was going on with her brother that day. The brother who, ended up going to jail for killing their whole family. I'm going to try to get through this without too many spoilers, okay? But especially in this video, in this clip, I'll avoid spoilers. But so you have this expectation out of a murder mystery that every interview is going to get you closer to the truth, and that's not really the case here. You learn a little bit as you go along, mostly in flashbacks, and then it starts to flow at the end where the secrets are coming out, and it's happening on top of a very good climax with lots of action and violence. So I want to talk for a couple minutes more about this. If you just want to watch this clip, fine.